Hello, you guys. Hey, this is Tanya Lewis. I am the CEO and founder of TNL Customer and Strategic Solution, where we work with leaders as well as organizations to help them level up their mindset, level up their skill set, as well as their service excellence through purpose driven strategies. Now, my background is in industrial organizational psychology, and my passion is simple. I love working to show leaders and show people that leading with integrity, authenticity, and accountability is doable, right? That's what I love doing, right? I've worked with numerous leaders over the course of my tenure in the corporate spectrum. I've worked with numerous leaders who were brilliant on paper, right? They had a sharp resume, but they were very, very broken in practice. And what I've learned over these 30 plus years is that you can build excellence, right? But you can't build excellence with an ego, and you can't lead people you look down on. Can you all agree? So today I wanted to have a real and raw conversation with you in regards to when leadership turns toxic. What happened when leadership turns toxic, right? I'm going to highlight 3 points today, right, for this conversation. And I'll hopefully, it will help you understand from a different perspective, right? Because this is something that most folks won't even talk about out loud. Now, they may whisper and gossip among each other, but they won't talk about it out loud. What happens when leadership turns toxic, right? And let's be real. Some of what we're calling leadership is just basically dressed up in a fancy suit, right? I've seen too many leaders that want to take control, but they don't want to accept the responsibility that someone is going to hold them accountable for what they said to them, right? They always want you to be loyal to them, but they don't know how to create that loyalty so it will build up trust. And nobody wants to talk about these things, right? So today we're going to talk about that toxic leadership, because a lot of times that toxicity doesn't start loud. It starts with subtle, quiet things, right? That silence that leads up to pride. And then before you know it, it becomes unchecked behavior, right? And so we want to talk about that today. So I'm going to highlight 3 points today. The first point I'm going to talk about is defining the problem. How do you define the problem? How do you realize there is a toxic leader in your mix, right? One of the reasons, or one of the ways you can determine that, is when it becomes more about the position than the people. When you have a leader that's always talking about their position, I'm this, that, and the third, right? And they lose sight of the actual purpose of them embarking into the role of leadership, right? They've forgotten about the people. The next thing is when leaders start demanding respect. Have you ever seen a leader? They always demanding respect, but they've never taken time to demonstrate that type of respect, right? Have you had somebody that does that? And also, toxic leadership will show up when power replaces purpose. A lot of times you can lose sight of the purpose. What is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate reason that you want to lead someone? Have you disconnected from that? So those are some of the things that that help you identify and define that problem, because it's very, very dangerous, right? When you're in a toxic environment with a toxic leader, guess what's going to happen? It's going to immediately fall apart. It's going to immediately fall apart, because what's going to happen, because it's become so silent, it's going to start decaying without you even realize that it has decayed, right? Because no one is having those conversations. No one is saying what needs to be said out loud. And then what will happen? People are going to keep showing up, but their hearts are not going to be in it because they've already checked out of the process. And then once the heart leaves the workplace, guess what? Everything else is going to leave. The excellence is going to leave the workplace, right? And I'm going to give you a quick example, right? I've seen teams, and this is the God's honest truth. I've seen so many teams that have had so much talent, right? They would, just talented. But because their leader turned feedback into offense, guess what? They got silent. They got silent and they stopped sharing their gifts and sharing their talents because everything they said, it was just constructive feedback on ways that they can be a part of the process and help the process. The leader took offense. And it was always a confrontation, right? Or they're trying to take my job, or they're trying to overstep their boundaries, or they're trying to do that. But in actuality, they was actually giving constructive feedback on things that would make it better, not only for the leader, but for the team as a whole, because they wanted the leader to elevate. Understand this, leaders. If your team succeeds, it's automatically a reflection on you. So don't lose sight of that, leaders, right? Because that's not leadership. That's not leadership. That's fear with a title. And you don't want for people to think that you just have a title, but you're full of fear, right? So that's the first point, defining the problem. The second point I want to talk about, right? What is the root cause? Has anybody ever taken time to get to the root cause of the problem? And a lot of times we will overlook the root. We'll bypass the root trying to get to a solution. But can I tell you, no solution is going to be a viable solution until you deal with the root, right? So look, let's just take a few minutes. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest about it. Most toxic leadership doesn't start with bad intention. I'm not going to say that. I know a lot of people say, well, he was a bad leader from the start, or she was a bad leader from the start. I truly believe that nobody goes into leadership with the intention on being a bad leader, right? I think it starts more so with the unhealed leaders. Sometimes we're going into leadership and we haven't taken time to fix those broken pieces of ourselves so that we can be more aware of who we are as individuals, so that we can start being able to relate to, things that happen with our teams, our employees, right? So I think it's more so of that, because I don't think anyone actually goes into leadership to be a bad leader. I think all of us go into it because we want to make an impact. We want to be great. We want to make a name for ourselves, but at what cost, right? But we never think about at what cost, right? And you can't do it by yourself. So what tends to happen? Insecurity, fear of being replaced, and the need to prove something starts overriding your thought process when it comes to assisting other people. Now you've got in a place feeling like, oh my God, they know a little more than I know. They can fix that problem, and I wasn't able to fix that problem. Are they trying to take my job? Then your insecurity starts showing up as a leader, right? And it's easy because if you haven't taken time to deal with you, become more self-aware, become more accountable into who you are as a person, insecurity will easily creep in. If you haven't established a solid foundation for yourself, right? If you've never been taught how to lead, and this is not being facetious or belittling, but if you've never been taught how to lead from a healthy place, you're going to always lead with the pain instead of the purpose. I'm going to say that again. If you've never been taught how to lead from a healthy place, you're going to always lead with the pain, and you're going to put purpose on the back burner, because you haven't been taught how to lead from a healthy place, right? That's a part of that root cause. And that's why so many leaders can't handle being challenged, right? because they tend to see it as disrespect instead of development. That's powerful. They tend to see it as disrespect instead of development, right? A wounded leader, I've learned, and I'm just speaking because I've been in this sector for so long, and I've seen pretty much just about everything, right? A wounded leader will always wound others, right? Always wound others because they don't want you to get no further than they got. They don't want you to get ahead of them because they're thinking about it from the standpoint, they're going to take what's mine. Can I tell you, kid, nobody take what's yours if it's God or it is yours, right? Look, that's why awareness is so very important. Humility is so very important. And healing as a leader is essential. You have got to take time to heal. Heal the root cause of the problem. Because if you don't take time to do the inner work on yourself, how you show up is going to be a reflection on how you treat your people. How you feel about yourself is going to directly impact the people you're trying to lead. And if you're still leading from pain, trauma, guess what? You're going to lead your people from pain and trauma. And they're going to get the brunt or the bulk of your traumatic experience and your pain. And you're going to take it as disrespect because they gave you constructive feedback. You're going to take it as they're trying to challenge your authority, when in actuality, they're trying to have an open conversation to be able to communicate and give that constructive feedback to not only make themselves better, but also help the team collectively as a whole, which will in turn boost your authority, boost your leadership, make you look good, right? So that's the second point, getting to the root cause of the problem. And the third point I want to highlight, the shift. The shift. There has got to be a shift from control to the culture, right? And the culture is so very, very important. And a lot of times we lose sight of the culture. What does the culture look like up under your leadership? What does the culture feel like up under your leadership? It truly, truly matters. Healthy leadership builds culture. It does not build control. It don't foster around control. It builds a culture that is welcoming. It builds a culture that welcomes feedback. It builds a culture that empowers others. It builds a culture, right, of upcoming leaders, right? And it also knows when to step up and when to take a step back, right? That's what leadership does when the shift from control to culture takes place. Look, real leadership, and I'm just being transparent, real leadership don't need to dim others to strive. I'm going to say that again. Real leaders don't need to dim someone else's light to strive or thrive as a leader, right? Because real leaders, they're going to automatically create environments where everyone's light is going to contribute to the ultimate goal and mission, right? Look, a true leader, and I've learned this, right? Like I said, I've been doing this so long, and I've seen everything and anything in this space, right? A true leader wants you to grow. A true leader wants you to be strong. A true leader wants you to be self-sufficient. A true leader wants you to grow and be celebrated for your accomplishments, right? That's what a true leader wants. A true leader is working towards leaving a legacy. That's what a true leader is working towards. And leaving a legacy is not simply showing up, pushing people around, making people fear you, feel your authority. A true leader that's looking to leave a legacy has empowered, impacted, and inspired others to mimic what you've shown and displayed to them through integrity, through accountability, through respect, trust, humility, compassion, empathy, right? Look, true leaders want you to grow. And that's what kingdom leadership looks like. That's what kingdom leadership looks like, right? So look, I want to leave you with a few reflections, and I want you to reflect on these things, right? When you get an opportunity, and you can do this as homework, or you can just write these things out, but I want you to reflect. And I'm big on reflections because reflections help you grow. Reflections help you develop, right? So I want you to ask yourself, do people feel safe bringing truth to you? And I want you to answer that question honestly. Do people feel safe speaking truth to you? Not your truth. Do they feel safe speaking their truth about what they have observed, what they have seen, what they know? Do they feel safe? Or are they hesitant because they know that your insecurities, your pain, and your trauma is driving the ship? So ask yourself that and be honest with yourself. Next thing I want you to ask yourself, would you be led by you? Would you be led by yourself? And be honest with yourself. I want you guys to be honest with yourself. Would you lead you? Would you be okay with you leading you? Would you be able to have an open, honest, open-ended conversation with you? And what would that look like? And the last reflection I want you to think about, are you building a culture on control? I want you to think about it. Are you building a culture under control? And these are questions that I can't answer for you. These are questions and reflections that you need to answer for yourself, right? And if any of these questions, right, have have struck a nerve with you, can I tell you that's good? Because this is what it should do. It should strike a nerve with you. That means growth is calling you. And leadership isn't about perfection. It's about becoming more aware, being more accountable, and leading with authenticity, right? I don't want you to let your table or your title cost you your character. Because real leadership, believe it or not, means being willing to grow, even when it's uncomfortable. Grow, even when it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself those questions. Challenge yourself and be honest with yourself. In order for you to help somebody else and be honest with someone else, you've got to first be honest with yourself and ask yourself those hard questions. Ask yourself those hard questions. Ask yourself the hard questions. And once you're able to answer those hard questions, then you can get on the road to a healthy place of leading other people. And you can tap back into the purpose of why you actually wanted to be a leader and why you actually wanted to make an impact on others. Look, you guys, I hope this has helped you. Look, at T&L Customer Strategic Solutions, we work with leaders. We work with organizations because we want to work with you and help you rebuild from the inside out, right? We want to help you strengthen your emotional intelligence. We want to work with you to help you improve your communications. And we want to also work and help you cultivate service excellence that lasts. Not a right now fix, something that lasts. So look, you guys, if you're ready to lead with clarity, lead with confidence and compassion, and get away from trying to control, look, I want to talk with you guys, right? You can book a breakthrough session with me. You can go to my website at www.tlcustomstrategicsolution.book-online, right? Because leaders don't hide from accountability. They invest in it. I'm going to say that one more time. Real leaders don't hide from accountability. They invest in it. Look, you guys, my name is Tanya Lewis. I'll see you again in one of our next streams. So look, y'all have an amazing day. I hope this has helped you to become a more effective, impactful, and influential and legacy leaving leader. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.